Passion, drive, persistence, resilience, love. All qualities that shape and define us. Join the Cyber Warrior as he helps shape your path. This is Walk With Me. Welcome back to Walk With Me, a Cyber Warrior Studios production. I'm your host on this journey, as always, the Cyber Warrior. Now, I've been doing things different the past few weeks, past couple weeks, where I've had guests on this show. And this week is no different. You see, I find that talking to other people and getting different perspectives, especially when people don't want to ask anonymous questions, hint, hint, you might want to ask some, I'm able to have a conversation and actually get different viewpoints on the topics at hand. And this week is no different, right? So I've got two people that are going to come on. They're part of the family. They're my warriors, people I consider family. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss accountability. That being accountability for your actions, accountability for who you are, and basically overall just taking accountability for the situation you're in. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you two of my family members. First and foremost, Looney. My man's been here and he's supported me since he found me and I found him. Appreciate you, Looney.
Appreciate you.
And second would be Rain. Rain, thank you for joining this evening. It's good to have you here. Rain is another one. I found her through my journey through Norse paganism, same as Looney. But I met her before and it's been an amazing journey. I found out a lot about Rain that I didn't know. And, it's been good to grow and learn from her. As well as Looney and the stories he has. So, before we get started, I just want to get your two perspectives, and we'll start with you, Looney, because you joined before Rain. She came in a little late. Your perspective on accountability and truly what you think accountability is.
Accountability is, not just owning up, and having the good parts of everything that you've done, but also being able to look back at the bad things and not just own those and move forward with it, but also being able to, learn lessons from them to improve yourself and help, possibly help others.
Definitely. And I can completely agree with that because I think that's something that we tend to, and you can look at it, and me, I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to look at it from all faiths. From a faith perspective, we tend to look at it as all the good is on me, but all the bad is on whatever my faith is, right? If things go wrong, well, why did you let this happen? Why did you let this happen? Why did you let this happen? As opposed to, I make shitty choices and, we're just going to go with it. Like, it doesn't make sense. If you make bad choices, bad things happen. So completely get where you're coming from there and taking accountability for both sides, the good and the bad. Rain, what about you?
For me, accountability is, like, as he said, taking blame for your actions, the consequences, all of that, but also being true to your words. If you say you're going to do something, you hold yourself to it, do it, and different things like that.
Yeah, and I can see where you're coming from that. And with, knowing that and understanding that, that goes a lot into the faith that I'm sure, both of us practice is, your honor, your oath, your word is your bond. And that is something that should mean a lot, should definitely have value. And if you're not willing to honor that, if you're not willing to honor your word, then how can you ever, who are you putting blame on? Why are you not taking accountability for your own actions? Because if someone comes to you and says, hey, I need this, this, and this, and you said you could help, and can you help? And you say, yeah. And then all of a sudden you can't help no more after you've already agreed to it. That's almost like a breach of contract. My oath is my bond. My word is my bond. Me personally, if I say I will always be there for you, I'll tell you if I can't be there financially. Like if you come to me on a financial base and be like, hey, brother, can you loan me like, X amount of dollars? Hey, I don't ever do loans. I don't. If I can help you out, I'm gonna help you out of the goodness of my heart. This is your family. I'm gonna help you out. I don't need the money back. But that being neither here nor there, the fact is if I can't, I'm gonna tell you. But if you say you can do something and then you don't do something, that's a whole different can of worms. now I can no longer trust you. Now you're no longer in that sphere of, are you truly family? Are you truly going to be there for me? Do you really care about what happens in our situation? So I can see where you come from on that, because that is something that I think we need to hold true to, especially as a faith that we have, is that honor, that oath, because that's one of the biggest things within the faith of Norse paganism is your oath, is your word is your bond. If you break an oath, if you break your word, sorry, like, homie, you out.
And that carried true for me as well. Like I grew up in a Catholic household, but I grew up in a blue collar household, and you'll find that among the blue collar, regardless of faith, that's something that blue collar people just hold as a value.
Yeah, and you'll see that more in blue collar. I think
Yeah.
that is true for all blue collar, all those that are, and we'll even go
Uh,
below blue collar and say those that are in the, we'll say poor, broke, homeless, whatever terminology you want to put on it. Your word is your bond. You have no money to give. You have no contract to write. You have nothing. You have your word. And if I can't trust your word, then how am I going to trust you ever? And you find that in those that are not rich, I'm not even going to say wealthy, we'll say rich, because wealthy is a whole different class of people. But those that don't have the money on a paycheck to paycheck basis to just be like, oh yeah, here you go, yeah, you're blue collar and below that are living paycheck to paycheck and literally can't afford to do anything beyond their family. Guess what? Your word is your bond. Your word is all you have. If I say I can do this for you, you better deliver. And if you don't, not only are you going to get burned by me, but I'm going to tell every single person that you know and that I know he doesn't deliver or she doesn't deliver. It's just not going to happen. And so that burns that network. And you want to talk about one burned bridge? That one burned bridge turns into about 10, 15, 20, 30, and it keeps growing.
you
And
will find
so
you will
very,
find
very
blue
important.
collar industry that even if I switch jobs and I go to a different state, there are going to be people that I worked with 20 years ago that I'm going to run into again.
Hmm.
The blue collar network is worldwide, and word travels.
Yeah.
You may outrun it for a time, you will never fully outrun it.
My
It
I
will
grew
catch
up
back up. It's
I
just
grew up with a dad that worked refinery. Our last name is well known to the point I've been out in public before and someone's heard my last name and they turned to me and asked if I was my dad or my uncle's kid. Never met them before. They knew the last name. That's how wide it spreads.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's truly how some of these networks work. And this is where I think accountability comes into play, because these days we have social media, right? And I preach about this. Social media is huge. Your presence on social media is huge. How you present yourself and what you talk about, the things you say, the things you do, all of this is vital. But within blue collar and even white collar work, your network and the network you eventually grow on things like LinkedIn, which is a professional platform,
Mhm.
that lends a lot to your credibility and who you are, who follows you, who's connected to you. I can't tell you how many jobs I've had where people are like, hey, do you know this person? You're connected to them. Can you reach out, figure out? And I'm like, yeah, let me go ahead and do it. But, it's one of those things where, because of this, if you burn somebody in my network, I'm going to find out about it, which means now you hit the blacklist. You hit the blacklist of people I will never recommend. And if anybody brings your name up again, sorry, it's not
Yeah.
going to happen. You're done. And you'll see that in the blue collar industry. My uncle he's a foreman. He runs job sites. He does all this stuff. And if you burn him, sorry, you ain't getting another job,
Yeah.
because you've done, made a name for yourself. But this is where I think people lack accountability, because they want to blame the situation. They want to blame all these other things. I made a post today. If I show up to work and I'm getting paid X amount of dollars, whatever it is, but I don't do my job, or I do the bare minimum, and then layoffs come, or they just say, hey, we need to fire people, whatever the case may be, and I'm let go. Well, guess what? You have one of two choices. You can say, hey, I didn't do the work that was required, or I didn't live up to the expectation, or I didn't actually put in the extra effort, whatever the case may be. So it makes sense. Or, the alternate route, not take accountability for your actions and blame everybody else but yourself. And that is something that we see frequently when layoffs happen, when people get fired. And don't get me wrong, layoffs are crappy. And sometimes they will literally lay off just, hey, the last 10 people hired, let them go.
Yep.
Not, just let them go. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people when it comes down to, actual work effort. Who's putting in the work? And so when I look at this, I'm like, you can either be a crappy employee who does the bare minimum, if the bare minimum, or you can stand out. You can show that you want promoted, you want more raises, you want bonuses, you want all these things. The choice is yours. And so when people get fired or they don't get hired at all, they're so willing to blame their circumstance. They're so willing to blame the company, not themselves. Maybe you don't have the education. Maybe you don't have the experience. Take accountability for that. Go work it out. And in my industry, and Looney, in cybersecurity and different things like that, yeah, there's some crappy job postings out there. There are people that say, we want a junior with 15 years experience. This happens. We know. I'm not talking about those situations of crappy HR and crappy job postings. I'm legitimately talking about you got the interview and you screwed the pooch, homie. It's on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the situation I'm talking about, where people are like, oh no, they didn't hire me because I look like this, I act like this, I talk like this. No, they didn't hire you because you didn't fit the role, not because of anything else.
Not just that, but like I was telling you before, I have an older brother that he does like a lot of people in the blue collar industry do, where we've been to prison and they let that be a shackle that just hangs around their neck constantly. Like, I'm not going to get this job because I've been to prison. I'm not going to get this because I've been to prison, and this and that. They turn around and they use that as such a crutch to keep going down the path they are. When if you actually look around in blue collar, 90% of the people there have that same history. I have that same history, and now I run international warehouses and stuff for a company out of the UK. I have my own house. I have 2 vehicles sitting out in the driveway. I do all that with 18 years worth of prison under my belt. It's not about what you've done. It's about, are you able to move past that? What were you willing to do even with that time to better yourself, to make your resume look like someone they wanted to hire? I went when I was in prison and when I was out of prison and got multiple college degrees. Do you think most of the jobs even ask about my prison stuff, even though I'm covered in tattoos? No. They look at all my degrees and they go, wait, we're about to get a guy with 5 college degrees for this role? That's all they look at. And then I go in, I nail the interview, and then while I'm at that company, I raise up through the ranks until I go to a different company. When I go to a different company, I have all these different positions that I had in the last company that are going on their resume. Now they've got somebody not only with 5 college degrees and a bunch of certifications, but that also has been a lead, has been a foreman, has been a dock supervisor, has been a warehouse supervisor, has been a warehouse manager, has managed multiple warehouses, has managed train yards, knows how to run forklifts, knows how to run cranes, knows how to run high reaches, knows how to run cherry pickers, scissor lifts, et cetera, et cetera. That's what they're looking at now. They're not looking at, well, do we know if he's been to prison? They're not even looking at that anymore. It's no longer a shackle. It's no longer a crutch.
And that's the big thing, right? Is taking ownership of, you know what, I screwed up. I know I screwed up. Let me take ownership of that. I'm gonna make something happen. Whether
Now,
in prison or out of prison, I'm gonna make things happen.
Did I have to humble myself when I got out and start out as like, a lumper just unloading trucks? Absolutely. In order to get my foot into a company and then build myself up from there and then launch from there. Yeah, I had to humble myself a bit for that. But I had to humble myself because of past actions that I did, and I knew I was going to have to do that in order to get my life moving forward past that.
And that's very important because that's something that so few people are willing to do. And Rain, I want you to chime in on this topic because I have my own feelings on it and how people approach certain situations about accountability and kind of moving forward. But I'd love your take on what Looney just said and kind of how he approached it.
On the criminal background aspect, I can't say, or I can't really speak on that because I don't have that personal experience, so I can't speak on it. But being around others who do have that background, it's exactly as he said. If you keep it as a shackle and keep saying, "Oh, this is why," and you aren't accountable for your own actions, and like, "Hey, yeah, I f***ed up. I did this. I shouldn't have done it. I've learned my lesson from doing it, and I'm trying to make myself better." And actually, not just say that you're trying to make yourself better, but actions and prove that you are actively trying to make yourself better. You're still going to be stuck, and it's kind of playing the victim aspect.
Ah, that beautiful victim card. I love it because we see
Mhm.
it so often today, right? Everything that happens negative, well, it's because I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing. I'm gonna
Mhm.
play victim, and I don't care who watches this, who listens to this. At the end of the day, you see that from prisoners, you see that from soldiers, you see that from everybody. It's always somebody has some victim. We play the victim Olympics these days, right? Who has it worse? I'm gonna be honest. When I look at situations, I don't look at who has it worse. I look at who's put in the effort,
Yeah.
who's actually tried to make something of themselves. Not let society, not let the media, not let whatever situation they put themselves in hold them down. I look at who's tried to overcome that, who's tried to make a difference, who's tried to become better. And I think that truly is where accountability comes into play. Because if we look at things in a situation of who has it worse, and we play these victim Olympics, well, then you're always looking at the negative. You're always looking at, oh, well, I went through this, or I went through that, or somebody didn't do this for me. They didn't do that for me. You're not looking at, well, what did you do? What have you done to better your situation? What have you done to better yourself? And that is what I think we need to get to, right? We need to see this shift in social media, and we're not going to see it on regular media. That would just never happen because, ratings and all
Doesn't
that.
make money.
Exactly. So we need to see this shift on social media. And I think this is where ban comes into play of on a certain application, we see this shift of people standing up and saying, oh no, you can make it no matter who you are. You can do this. You just have to put in the effort. You got to put in the work. It is on you. And this is where, for me, this is where I separated myself because I could point out a bunch of different things and a bunch of different flaws in society and a bunch of different flaws of things that hold me back trying to break into cybersecurity, trying to do cybersecurity, trying to do all these things that I do. I could point out a bunch of different things that point out why my podcast isn't this, this, and this. But the reality of it is, it comes down to me. It's on me to do the work. It's on me to push it. It's on me to do all these things. So I
Mhm.
can blame everybody. By all means, there's a lot of things out there that I can go out and complain about and say, oh, it's because of this, or I don't have that, or I don't have this. And I have vented my frustrations and said, oh, yeah, I've pointed all these things out to people. But the reality of it is, I have to take ownership. I have to take ownership of the choices I make, the decisions I make, and the things that I do. If I want it to work, I have to make it work. If I want to get better at something, I have to get in the training to get better at something. And I think this is where society lacks. I think this is where we lack accountability. And that, oh yeah, I can do this. Okay, really prove it. Precisely.
A lot of accountability too has to come with being able to take internal stock of yourself
Yep.
and know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And you have to be able to focus your life towards what your strengths are. If you have some weaknesses you want to work on, set time aside for that. But you can't dwell on those things either because those aren't the things that are going to get you ahead.
Yep. Rain, if we were to talk about strengths and weaknesses, what would you point out as your strengths and weaknesses as far as accountability and knowing yourself and who you are as a person? What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Um, it
If you
kind of
know.
varies. For me, it kind of varies some. So I have strengths and weaknesses in multiple fields, if that makes sense. Like I have a friend that y'all know about, uh, well, Cyber at least knows about, Vanessa, one of my friends who lives out of state and has had some stuff happen and has a house down here and has needed help with it. Some strengths that I have with helping with that being my comfortability and use around firearms to help with protection. Basic fixing of being able to look at when the toilets were acting up, being able to look at the plumbing aspect of it, help with that. After giving my word, like I told her, she asked me if I could be security for her or help her feel comfortable more so, not actually be security and be around with her. And I told her yes, told her I would help out with stuff that I saw that needed help around the house, helped clean the pool, fix the vacuum in the pool, helped to the best of my abilities, look at the pumps and everything on the pool, and then tell her if it's something I didn't know or wasn't comfortable with trying to fix, let her know immediately, hey, I looked at it. I can't tell what exactly is wrong with it. I recommend calling an actual pool company to take a look at this, try and fix it, because I'm not comfortable in my knowledge on it, and I don't want to cost you more money rather than just get someone who does know how to do it to work on it. And just little things like that. So I have strengths and weaknesses in different aspects. I grew up with a blue collar family that is a jack of all trades and specialized in carpentry, building houses from the ground up, sometimes electrical and plumbing too.
And that's very important, right? Because you understand that aspect. And that's something that I think, me personally, I'm gonna put it out there. I am not the most mechanically inclined. I grew up in a family. My dad had me hold the flashlight and do certain things. Let's be honest. He was a builder. He didn't build things straight, but he was a builder. Uh, um, but I
Did you
never
ever hold the
necessarily.
flashlight correctly?
No, no, that never happened.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm not
Yeah,
alone.
that just never happened. Um, but so me, I never learned the tools because I think me and my dad have the same problem. If you can do the job and you can do it yourself and you can do it right, then you just do it. And this is why I was never taught the aspect of necessarily how to truly use all the tools. Between that and let's be honest, when you're me and you're more attuned to computers and not necessarily tools, your father looks at you and goes, "You're going to cut your finger off." And I've got proof from knives that it's very likely he was right. So my wife is the builder. My wife built my desk. My wife did all these things. So me, yes, do I get upset sometimes that I can't be the person I should technically be? Yeah, I get upset. And I'm like, babe, why don't you let me help you with this? Are you sure? Or do you really want to do that? You're right. You're right. I'm gonna step away from this one and you go ahead. You know? So for me, taking accountability is realizing that there are certain things I'm great at. There are certain things that I know I can do for a fact. I have my strengths. And there's other things where we look at as a society and we're like, well, I can do everything you can do. No, no, you can't. I wish I could do everything my wife could do. I truly do. I ain't gonna lie. She is the one. She has a system and things that she does for like laundry and cleaning and all this other stuff around the house. She takes care of everything. And I looked at it. I tried folding clothes this past weekend, and I'm looking at it, going, "I'm losing my mind. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Like I see clothes and sizes. I got 5 boys. I don't know." And I went down. I said, "Babe, how do you do this? Literally, please explain to me how you were able to do this because I'm losing my mind." And so it's just things that we have to understand as a society. Quit trying to be like everybody else.
Quit
Quit
trying to fit yourself in
trying.
a box.
Exactly. Right. So we look at it and let's look at certain systems today. And I'm not going to put names on it. I don't want to be dragged through the freaking brush. I'm just going to say that we're so quick to say you have to be one thing because you don't prescribe to X thing. Right. No, you don't. I've got family that didn't prescribe to one thing in the way they dressed, but they prescribed to another thing in how they dressed, but they still wanted to be this over here. Then I got another one that was like, oh yeah, I'm completely, let me put this on, I got this, we're good to go. But they wanted to be dirty and everything else, which was freaking weird, right? You've got the one that, yeah, completely confusing family. But either
I've got
way,
a younger brother that we'll say he's like Dutch door action, goes both ways. And he was so worried for the longest time that like, that I wouldn't accept him and that I would make fun of him, belittle him and stuff like that. And I'm like when he finally, came out on that part and told me, I was like, okay, your point. And he's like, what? And I'm like, look, where you choose to put yourself and what you choose to put in you isn't my business. Like, I don't care.
and when I look at it, when you take accountability for your own actions, it's
I've even
what you
gone to
do is
clubs with him.
you. It's
Yeah.
your choice, your decision. You decide. You decide how you live your life, while at the same time, just like everybody else, pro or against any movement, you decide the consequence. You decide your actions, but you better be prepared for the consequences of those actions.
And
Like
and
for
I'm like
me,
that with most people in general. Like if I'm interacting with them on a friendship basis or on a work basis, I stay inside that bubble with it. Most people that I
Because
know,
who
their
cares?
personal life outside either of that, I don't care. It's not my life. I don't care.
And that's how it
Like
should be.
it's not going to affect me. It doesn't change how I live my life, so it doesn't matter.
And that's how it should be. We take accountability for our own actions. We take accountability for the way we live our lives, the things we say, the choices we make. You choose to live one way or the other way. I don't care.
Mhm.
I look at you as a person. So the
Yep.
choices you make as a person, are you good people? Are you going to do what's right for humanity? Are you going to do what's right for society? I don't care about you yourself as far as the choices you make for yourself. You do you, boo boo. Have fun.
Mhm.
I care about how you treat others. And that's
Yep.
how I look at things. I care about that. And so that is where we can, even as a collective right now, us three can look at the Pagan Project, how that spawned, the
Yeah,
reason
I've
it
been down
spawned,
there.
the things like that.
Right down there. Pagan Project.
Right? I love it. So we look at that, and it's because we did not agree with certain things.
Yeah.
Look, I will speak out against it if ever it came to it. I'm one that I was never big. I never cared, never got involved. It's one of those things that I just loved Liam and the things we talked about. And so I was like, hey, any way I can help. But when you look at something like that, you make your decisions. Guess what? I chose to come to the fellowship. I chose to come to the Pagan Project. I chose these things because I felt like as a community, as a collective, everybody belongs. Everybody has their own path. Everybody has things they can do.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes at me, I will take accountability for my actions, and I will say, I still believe in this. But there are others that won't take accountability, and they will say, oh, well, I didn't know. No, you knew.
You
The
know.
news is there.
And I can take accountability on it for quite a while. I had spoken out against that other creator that, because of their actions, kind of spawned this thing, and then I kind of got blasé about it to where I just flat out didn't care. And then it wasn't until Liam was talking about doing a giveaway because of some stuff they had done. And then I decided to go and do the research and see what had been going on and start hearing some of those stories and stuff. And that's when I kind of had to take my own accountability of, well, are you really going to stand by the sidelines and just kind of let this keep going on? Or are you going to do something for those people that got suckered into that? And so that's when I got with Liam and was like, hey, look, I'm going to go ahead and order this. Give me an address to send these to. Let me know how I can help with this. And I kind of had to bite my tongue and bite my pride a bit on it, because it was like, this was something I could have done sooner and on my own if I hadn't been so dismissive of what was going on.
And for me, I don't follow. We look at it this way. Me and my friend Andrea talked about it 3 weeks ago about algorithms.
Hmm.
You see, anytime I see something negative, I move on. I don't want to see it. I don't care. I don't want negativity in my life.
Hmm.
That is not who I am. There are people out there I love and respect that I don't agree with some of their opinions. So the moment they start talking about it, I'm gone.
Right.
I'm out. Deuces. I don't want to hear about it. And so there are things about this that then we don't get fed into it. So we don't hear about it, we don't see it. And this is the problem with taking accountability. On social media, you end up in an echo chamber. So
Hmm.
how can you take accountability for something if everybody is telling you you're right? How can you say I was wrong when everything you see says you were right?
Well,
And that's the hard part because now you've got thousands of people saying you're doing the right thing. But then when you finally hear a different opinion, you're like, oh, no, you're wrong. All these people say I'm right. You're wrong.
but how many times do you hear about people that, despite everyone telling them they were doing the right thing, they still felt wrong about doing it? Doesn't
That's
matter.
so
It doesn't
funny,
matter what
Joe.
all these other people are telling you. If you feel it's wrong, that's on you.
And that's where it comes
It's
down to.
holding yourself accountable for your own feelings.
Hmm.
And that's where I think we lack, right? We see things different. Rain, you see things differently than I do. Me and you know this. We've had long talks. There are things me and you will see differently. I still love you as a human being, as a person. I still respect you and your opinion and everything you have to say. There are just certain aspects of life and society that me and you will see different. It
And the
happens.
beautiful thing about that is we always discuss it and debate, not argue and belittle.
And that is where I think we lose accountability is the moment you sit here and belittle someone and attack them and call names and say, oh, no, you're wrong. You're a POS. You're this, that, and a third. And da, 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 da. You've lost all credibility. Deuces, you're out.
Mhm.
The moment you call names. And that goes from any side of the spectrum you want to look at, whether it's religious, whether it's political, whether it's what have you. You've lost all accountability. Now everybody who looks at you that has any sense is going to say you have no leg to stand on.
Yeah,
Me and
and a
you
lot of
always,
people can't let go of that pride to accept the fact that they may be wrong.
and I've said it in my other show. I've said it in Security Happy Hour. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah.
That literally comes out of my mouth frequently when we talk about things that are fact based. If I am wrong on my facts, if I got the wrong resources, if I don't know what I'm talking about, please point it out. Let me know because I need to know these things because I want to take accountability for my actions. If I'm wrong in how I go about things, if I'm wrong in how I see things, please let me know. Now, when things come down to more sociological and opinionated pieces, well, that's when you see some arguments and that's when you'll see more debate about what is right, what is wrong. And eventually you just got to have a civil debate and then be like, look, we're going to disagree on this. There's no facts behind it. It's solely how we feel. When you
Well,
go by how you feel,
and
then you're not
I,
you can have this difference of opinion and still be human beings and be like, hey, we disagree. Nothing wrong
yeah,
with that. We don't see things the same. But
and
it
that's why,
breaks
like, a
down.
lot of the arguments that you do find me having on social media are religious based, and being the academic that I am, one of my biggest fallbacks for arguments is cite your sources. And that's not just to put them on the defensive and prove that they know anything about what they're talking about, but that's also so that if they do have that talking point and they do have sources, if it's something I haven't read, now I know where to go look this up to see where this information came from, so we can continue this debate with both of us kind of knowing each other's side and where this information is coming from,
Right.
so we know what we're debating.
Also, it credits and proves when they're stating facts and when they're stating their feelings but trying to portray them as facts.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, what we see in too much in media today and too much
Yeah.
in society. We want to take our opinions and our feelings and portray them as fact. Like, this is real. This is what it is. But there's no sources backing you.
But
Now,
I
here's the kicker.
feel
Here's the problem with sources. please do not ever cite your source as Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, or anything in media. The moment your source has a twist to it or has a lean, it is no longer valid. That is an opinionated piece that is no longer valid.
There's a counterpoint to that. If you were going to cite one of those news sources, cite exactly who said it and on what day it was on and who they were referencing when they said it.
Okay. I can understand you on that.
Because chances are it's going to be a doctor of
opinionated.
some kind, and any doctor who has stated an opinion on something has a peer-reviewed research paper on it that's accessible. If they don't,
That I can
it's a
find.
crock.
Yes. I can find a peer-review source, then okay.
If a doctor is stating something with a non-peer-reviewed source, there's a reason for it, and it's because it's BS, and peer groups refuse to accept it.
Yeah. So I can get behind that, but that's my thing, right? When we're looking at these biased sources and everybody wants to bring up news sources as, oh, this is real. Come on, homie. Like, we've got Fox News saying this. They showed 30 seconds of one clip that is maybe the before. You've got another news source that's showing 30 seconds of the same clip, but it's after. And so you're getting two different points of view. Come on. Like, this is not reality. This is all trying to feed off your emotion, your fear, your what have you, and your feelings. It's not trying to state anything based in fact and based in evidence.
And with that being said, people aren't making themselves do the research to fact check it. They're just not to sound rude, but to be blunt and say it how it is. They're being sheep and just following what the media says and playing into the media's hand as they want us to.
And I love how both sides do it, right? So we see this now where, man, this is becoming political, but we're going to go that route. Forget it. I'm just going to go that route because when it comes to accountability, both sides in the United States, both sides need to take accountability for their actions.
All sides.
Well, true. We have more than two. So all sides need to take accountability for their actions. In that they'll look at one and they'll say, this is fact. And they won't ever look at the other. They won't ever acknowledge the other than the fact that they're a bunch of liars, they're hypocrites, da-da-da-da. They'll go down that route. You look at the other side, they're going to do the same thing. And I can go back to 2008, 12. No, hold up. I got to do math, and math is not good for me right now. When Obama was elected.
2008, I believe.
It was either 8 or 12. It was 2008 because he served 2 terms, and then Trump, and then you have, Biden that's in there now. So you go back to 2008. You had a bunch of people on the right, not my president, he's illegitimate, he's da-da-da-da-da. And then you had the bunch of people on the left saying, oh, no, he was voted in, da-da-da, he's legitimate. Then when Trump got voted in, not my president, da-da-da, well, you can't say that. He did get voted in. He is your president, da-da-da. And then you had Joe Biden get voted in. So since Obama, we have seen this trend of hypocrisy, and it's been before that, but this was the biggest kicker for me.
Yeah.
And then
not my president.
Well, that's where social media became big and the word was able to get out there. And since then, it's been like wildfire with it.
Yeah.
And just like if you look back at when Facebook first started, that's when a lot of stuff started getting spread too. I was little, but I still remember when YouTube was first made and how everything was spread through YouTube. Anytime there's more social media and it picks up in popularity, stuff spreads like wildfire and you get kind of chaos as we've experienced and witnessed ourselves the past few years with TikTok being huge and the BLM movements and everything like that. Everything spreads like wildfire, but not everyone takes the time to hold the people posting it accountable on if it's facts or not, and then hold their self accountable for how they react, and so on and so forth.
I think a lot of it too is that with this influx of social media and mainstream media, people have kind of people have stopped trying to think of how to put it. They have kind of lost and quit teaching the ability to research and to fact find.
Yeah.
It's like it feeds in. It's on Facebook in the news, therefore it's true. Nobody, I remember back in like the 80s and stuff when you had like Bryant Gumbel and them on the news, where there was like no political agenda there. They'd tell you, and that's the news. And that was
They
it. They
basically
left it
read the
completely up to you.
newspaper to you, is what it was. It was a visual reading of the newspaper and the news of the day.
Yeah.
And now we have become so opinionated, and that the political parties, the corporate, the whatever you want to call it, own the media companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything has a slant. Anything that becomes opinionated, and you can see it in the way they portray it and how they completely bash one side, the other, or the other. Look, if you're going to start bashing, no. And when we talk
It
about
discredits your whole argument for me. If the moment you start attacking someone because they disagree with you, your whole argument and stance is discredited to me.
and that's the thing. When are we going to take accountability for our own actions? In that, you want to know why TikTok is big? Is because you find people, not everybody, there are still people that are slanted one way or the other, but you find people that are legitimately bringing facts to the table. You find people
Yeah.
that are literally saying, this is what's going on in France. This is what's going on here. This is what's going on here.
Mhm.
And you get a global view. Whereas, unfortunately, Facebook, IG, Google, so we'll say Meta, Google, Amazon, and a few others that own the news and the other social media companies, they're in the United States, so they want things slanted one way or the other. I don't care what political party or who owns them. The fact is, it's slanted. They're going to remove what they don't want you to see, and they're going to leave on there what's going to push a narrative.
Mhm.
So you're not taking accountability for your own actions. You as a human being sees this and says, oh, yeah, that's right. That's got to be fact. You know how easy it is for me as a cybersecurity person to go on there and change what's on Wiki. Actually, anybody can change what's on Wikipedia. Anybody can go on there and deface a website. Anybody can go on there and truly alter what is seen online. Deep fakes are a real thing. I can sit there and put Trump on there saying the most horrific things ever, and you're going to believe it and say, oh, yeah, Trump said that.
Mm-hmm.
I can go on there and say Joe Biden said the most horrific things ever, and you're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, Trump said that, or Biden said that." That's fact. That's what really happened. You know how easy it is to do these things now. So now the way I look at things and the way I look at the internet is, unless I'm there, unless I have seen it firsthand, that person right there, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt because
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust what I see online anymore because I know for a fact it's too easy for me to change, let alone
That was
somebody
one of the
else's
things
better.
that, like, when I started getting my degrees and stuff like that, when I started looking into cybersecurity, once you start to see the amount of things you can do with just a few classes in the IT field, it starts to become a very scary and dark place, and you start to look at things in your regular daily life, like the news, social media, even people's opinions that are based on that type of stuff, advertisements. You start to look at them very, 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 very different.
And that's where we need to take accountability for the things we say and do. If
Hmm.
you're going to take a news source as a proof of fact, of factual evidence, and somebody brings a counterpoint to you and brings up different news source that is factual evidence, well, then you both need to check yourselves and take accountability for the fact that you're only looking at one side or the other. Because as people say, and as common knowledge, there is one side, the other side, and then the truth. And
Yep.
these days, you probably have one side, the other side, and then the truth somewhere in the middle. That's just how it is. And until we start realizing that and quit going about things in such a way that we're just going to say, "Oh yeah, this side's right, or this side's right, or this side's right," and start looking at it holistically and looking at the bigger picture, we're always going to be at each other's throats. Rain, me and you know there are things me and you could literally be tearing each other apart about, but we realize that A, we're both human beings, and B, I'm going to love you and support you no matter what. And
Yeah.
C, guess what? We don't know all the facts.
Nope.
We don't
And with
know everything out there.
And
We're
even
on
though
the
we're at odds with each other and r- metaphorically more so tearing each other's throat out, we're also trying to ensure that each other has the facts that we need to form our own opinions on it. We're not
Mhm.
trying to influence and say, oh, you need to think like this. No. We're like, okay, you may think this. I don't agree with you. So I want to make sure you have the facts to form your own opinion and feel what you feel about it.
Yep. And that's what it comes down to, and that's what it should be. And this is where I think, because of, I forget who I was talking to. It may have just been a comment on social media. When is the last time you saw any political debate that wasn't just going after each other for BS and things they did in the past? When has
I've
it been about a
refused,
platform and what you're going to do to benefit the people in your nation? That could be here, that could be Canada, that could be Mexico, that could be anywhere that has a democratic debate system. It doesn't matter. When's the last time you actually saw that? Because I
so
can't think of a time at 36 years old, the last time I saw two presidents or three or four of the United States, prospective presidents of the United States, actually debating a platform, not, oh, well, you did this 6 years ago, or you did this, or you said this, or you said that. When's the last time they debated what they were going to do to improve the country?
The
so
last one that I can remember seeing, I think, was the most recent George Bush during his first term, during before his first term, when he was running for his first term. So that would have been 90 something or other, 96, 97, somewhere in there.
so on the
So
topic of accountability on this too, I've refused to watch political debates because for me, being neurodivergent and people not talking about what they should be talking about completely and totally overwhelms me.
Oh, I
So
hate it.
with that being said, I'm I'm also not good with confrontation. So watching a show or watching something that is supposed to be debating and discussing topics and issues and how to fix them, but in reality is just personal attacks towards each other for however long straight. I can't do that.
Yep.
the
And
only reason I can watch them is I look at them as though they are a political roast. That's the only way. I sit back and I'm just like sitting here with chips, like, come on, fire one off. Come on, what do you got? Like,
It's
but
like,
as
who
far as
got the
taking
best
them
quick
serious,
hitter?
yeah, as far as taking them serious for anything, I can't.
And that's the
to
thing. And
me, it just reminds me of middle schoolers.
right. And I'm with you, Rain, in that it is very much, it should be, if you're not going to talk about how you can benefit me, my family, my friends, I don't want to hear about it. And so much has become snippy. And it's been like, middle schoolers or my kids, my two, and, when my kids were toddlers, attacking each other over the dumbest things. That's what it's turned into. It is not turned into any logical discussion. And even to this day, when you see people promoting themselves, they'll say their platform, oh, yeah, I'm about this topic, and this topic. Okay, what are you going to do for it? How are
What are
you
you
going to
actively
improve
doing to
that
support
situation?
those things?
Yes. And for me, there are topics, and don't get me wrong, and this is where I think, as far as accountability, I'll take accountability. There are certain things in policy that I disagree with. And I will definitely sit there and say, hands down, I disagree with that. But guess what? If it's good for the country, then it's good for the country. I may
Mhm.
disagree with it, but hey, I can't argue the fact that, guess what? Rain, you're making more money, or you're able to live a happy life and do what you do as a person and be happy and be successful and everything else. I can't argue that. I may disagree, but I can't argue the fact that you're good people and I love you. And if it makes you happy, all right, we'll have a conversation. I'm like, all right, I disagree, but hey, go for it. You do you, boo boo. But so many people want to sit there and bring in some other reason why it's bad for one reason or another. And it's like, no, no, no. We need to look at this holistically. How can we get better?
Mhm.
And I think as individuals, we get better by A, don't blame others for your own actions. B, when you want to blame someone, blame the government.
But that,
I
that
mean,
also brings up the whole victimization thing too, with people losing accountability for stuff. It's like, you screw up at work, and they turn around and they fire you over it. Oh well, the economy was getting bad, so they had to let somebody go anyway. I was just their scapegoat. You're like, what? No, you screwed up, fool. Like, you got to
Yeah.
own that too.
Yep. Or
You
or
gave
it's
them the reason they needed. That's your fault.
yeah.
does
You
it
know?
ever bother anyone when they don't hold employees accountable for their actions and instead promote them instead of reprimand like they should?
All the time. All the
Woo.
time. Look, I have not been in that situation. Thank the gods. I have not been in that situation where somebody got promoted or moved on, but I have been being in the military, I've seen it and I know it's happened where people have screwed up and done things that should have got them dishonorably discharged, but instead, well, they're this rank and they're so close to retirement. We're just going to PCS them and move them to this, whatever, and so they can retire and leave.
Because
What?
someone didn't want to have to do the paperwork and have to hold them and their self accountable. They would rather just ignore it and push it under the rug.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you see that a lot. And I think that is, I personally, coming from the military, I think the military suffers from accountability issues than most other places. I think individuals are worse on an individual basis. I think individuals are worse than the military. But I think as an organizational basis, I think the military is worse than civilian.
I don't know. Walmart's pretty fucking bad.
The place where I run into it real bad, and it's going to sound horrible me bringing it up this way, but is with foreigners. Hear me out. Why? Like, where I'm at now, we have a lot of people from like Lithuania, Poland, stuff like
Right.
that. The company brought them over here. They kind of got stuck here during COVID, so now they've been here established and whatnot. They have their whole life here. But the only reason they're still here is because the company is who is sponsoring their work visas and stuff to keep
Yeah.
them
They're
here.
H-1B. Yeah.
So those people screw up at work and end up getting promoted out of it because it would cost the company more money having to send them back over there and then having to explain everything to the people over there on why they're sending them back and everything than it is to just promote them and give them more responsibility to get them out of other people's way. And it's like,
I
no.
I can see that as an issue, and I can see why that would be problematic. And I think this is where we as a society need to start looking at things from a personal level of what's good and bad for people and be more
Mhm.
humanistic about our approaches. So many people want to bring the exterior into things. Let's be honest, it comes out a lot. Your exterior, you hold more value to your exterior. And so if something doesn't go your way, you're going to blame your exterior versus who you are on the inside. Could you bring value to an organization? Could you bring value to a person? Could you bring value to a situation? And so when you act crappy and you're a crappy person, all of a sudden it's not about the fact that you're a crappy person. It's about the fact that, well, because I look this way or I act this way.
Mhm.
No, it's because you're a crappy person.
Yeah,
Own it.
like
Own
I
up
was
to
up
your
there.
mistakes and your decisions. Once you do that, you can get better. So
Yeah,
for
I was
instance,
up for a promotion, and somebody else screwed up in another department. And instead of moving me up to the position I was going to, they promoted that person up to it. And instead of giving me 15,000 more a year to do that position, they gave them 30,000 more a year to do that position because they were from overseas. And that's why I'm looking for a different job. Because on the company wise, like I said, they're sponsoring them to be here and sponsoring their H-1B. So it's like they're they're committed and tied to that employee, as opposed to someone like me who, as a U.S. citizen, I can go elsewhere and find another job.
yeah. So it's a big thing, and there's a lot that goes into it. I don't have anything against anybody, but I think if you're a crappy person, if you do a crappy job, if you do this, own it. If you screw up,
Mhm.
you screw up. I preach that to my kids. I tell my kids, you end up in jail, good luck. I'm not bailing you out.
Mhm.
I'm not. You made the mistake. You're
The
going
only
to
time
own
I've
it and
ever
you're
been
going to
bailed
face
out
up
of
to
jail
it.
was when I bailed me out.
But that's the thing, is too many people want to blame the system, blame something else, blame everybody but themselves for the repercussions of their choices. Look, we have a choice to make in life. Our life is made up of choices. You can choose things that have a favorable outcome, or you can
Mhm.
choose things that, guess what, if I do this, there's a good chance I'm gonna get in trouble, but I might get more money. Risk versus reward. That's like
Yep.
going to rob a bank and then something happening to you, and then you being like, "Oh, well, it's because of this that I got in trouble." No, homie, you robbed the bank. You did wrong. Like,
Mhm.
Every good or wrong I have done, I have openly admitted to doing it. I've never tried to blame anywhere else. I've always done the risk versus reward, assessment, and that's what's really set me apart from like my older brother. My older brother will blame everything under the sun. Like it will come down to the sun rays were reflecting off the moon and caused the rings of Saturn to be too bright, and it distracted me, so I turned this way. Like he will go that far with it. Whereas me, I'm like, nah, I did that. That's on me. I'm here. I deserve to be.
right? Like you got
Oh,
people like trying to pull a Shaggy. It wasn't me.
it wasn't me.
Yeah, in my
Homie, you're
case,
on
it was
camera.
me.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. No, that was you. No, it wasn't me. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you
no,
caught,
it was me.
right?
It was me.
Like it
Like,
wasn't me. I did it. You caught me. You caught the
Mhm.
hater. It happened.
like Cyber, you remember me telling you about the 2 instances of me being a chaos demon as a child?
Look, you're a chaos demon now, let alone as a child. I can't imagine how you were. But that's the
The
thing. You own it. You own it.
yes. And like I said, with the one of me almost, well, I did not almost drown my cousin,
Lies.
but I did. So I'm gonna do the whole story real fast. We were in the pool. I was about 9 or 10 years old. This was just after, like, not too long after my little sister was born. So me, my cousins, my brother, we were all in the pool. My brother's 10 years older than me, and my little cousin kept throwing stuff at him, like the pool toys that are the little sticks that are fabric with the hard plastics on the end. And she kept hitting him with it, and he kept saying, "Ow," told her multiple times to stop. I told her multiple times to stop. She continued throwing things at him. So I grabbed her head and pushed her under the water to get her to stop. And the moment she started to calm down, I let her go. I immediately got ripped out of the pool and was getting in trouble, getting yelled at and all. And I looked at the parents and I'm like, I'm not saying I don't deserve to get in trouble because I do. I know I probably didn't react the way I should have, but I neutralized, like, she wasn't stopping, so I made her stop. But with that said, why is she not getting in trouble for steadily hurting him and throwing stuff at him when we all told her to stop and she didn't stop?
So
Like,
I relate
I'm
this to
owning
bullying.
up for what I did, but why is she not being held for what she did?
So
Accountability starts at childhood too. A lot of parents make the excuse of, "Oh, well, they're just a kid." Like, no, you still have to hold them accountable so they start learning that now.
right. The way I see it is like this. You have in schools these days these anti-bullying policies, right?
More
Which
so just
basically
catchphrases.
is just a catchphrase. It doesn't mean anything because I've seen kids get bullied, or rather, I've heard about it from my kids. I've got 5 boys. My boys have been bullied. Everybody's been bullied. I've seen and heard about it all. When my kids started, I don't blame the school. I've found out about when my kids have started it. Guess what? I hope you won because when you come home, you're going to lose. You're
Hmm.
going to lose. You bully someone, you're going to lose when you get home.
That's
Whereas at school, if you're bullied or you're standing up to a bully that's bullying somebody else, go ahead, get detention, get suspended. I don't care. Guess what? I'm going to take you out to ice cream. I'm going to go buy you something.
Hmm.
We're going to have a good old time.
and
Because here's the thing.
I think that's where a lot of my accountability started too. Is as absent as my dad was, that was one thing he was very good on. He would wait, find out exactly what happened, and if I was in the wrong, well, my ass was going to be raw. Um, but if I was in the right, he would stand up and defend every bit of that.
And that's me.
Hmm.
I've stood up and I talked to like my son's principal. He called. I'm literally waiting outside the school for my kids. And he was like, "Hey, your son was involved in the fight." I said, "Okay, what happened?" And he was like, "Well, he was going around doing this, this, and this. Some kid got mad and, whatever happened." I'm like, "Oh, so he started it." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "All right." I said, "Well, what did he tell you?" He goes, "He wouldn't talk." Oh, so he definitely started it. If he's not going to tell you what happened, I know he started it. All right, cool, bet. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. And that's the thing, right? Whereas you have other parents that are going to go in there, whether it's good grades, bad grades, bullying, not bullying, whatever the case may be, and blame everything on the school and the teachers and everything else, and not take accountability of be a flipping parent.
Hmm.
Your kids are not your friends. Your kids are not somebody that you're supposed to be like, "Oh yeah, I'll take your side. Oh yeah, you're perfect. Everything's right." No, it's not. Kids need to learn. How can they become respectable members of society? How can they grow up and do something with their lives if you are not going to hold them accountable when they are doing things wrong? I will always hold my 5 boys accountable. I do it at home to this day. You don't come when I call, or if I hear what, I'm going to sit there and wait. Go ahead, say what. We'll see what happens. I'm waiting. Let's figure it out. So they're learning. My oldest is taking a little longer to learn. But when I was in the military, I traveled a lot, so I couldn't really impress the message too well. But they're learning. You don't say what to dad or mom. You come. When you're called, you show up. I don't want to hear what. I better hear, "I'm coming. Be right there. On my way." Something along those lines, not
Or
what,
yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
right? Look, that was something I could not do to my kids. I don't know why. I just wasn't raised that way. I wasn't from down south where yes, sir, yes, ma'am was a big thing. And even in the military, it just wasn't something impressed upon me. To me, I just need you to say "on my way."
I need you to give a verbal confirmation that is respectful. It
Right,
doesn't have to be the proper, societally proper way to address an
right,
adult. I just need you to be respectful and respond.
right. I don't want to hear what. You tell me
Mhm.
what, that means, hey, that means you're still in your room and you don't care what I have to say. No, no, no. That ain't gonna fly. And so accountability, right? So when you screw up, you get bad grades, guess what? I'm taking things. You
Hmm.
screw up, you don't do what you're supposed to do about as far as chores around the house. I bet you don't get no allowance, and I'll probably end up taking things. You want to go to the movies this weekend, and I pay for the tickets that you get every week? Nope, you ain't going. You want to go to the park? Sorry, you ain't going. You're lucky I'm not one of those Gen Xers or somebody else that's older that was raised to beat their kids. Because if I was, I have had multiple opportunities to make sure my kids could not sit for a solid week. I'm just not that type of person. And as not, I have nothing against people that do that as long as you are doing it in a respectful manner and you're not abusing your kids. You do you, boo boo. I'm not going to tell you how to raise your kids. I'm simply saying, me as a person, I can't do that. It is not in me. But my kids will learn to fear me and respect me. I don't need you to be my friend right now. Now, when you become an adult, different story. Let's go out for a beer. We're going to have a good time. But until you become an adult, you live under my roof. You obey my rules. You do what I say.
Hmm.
And all these people out there that will be like, "Oh, no, you got to listen to your kids. You got to love." Look, I love my kids, but it doesn't mean I need to sit there and be like, "Oh, yeah, this is how you should." No, no. You do what I say. What I say. Your feelings, I'll listen to. But me and you're going to have a conversation. We're going to discuss how you feel. We're going to discuss why you feel this way. And we're going to discuss whether or not you truly feel this way or you just heard it from somewhere. Because if
Mhm.
you're on YouTube, TikTok, and all these other things that are putting poison in your mind because you decided to listen to one thing or the other, homie, we're going to have a logical discussion. We're going to figure
Hmm.
this out. And if you don't agree with that, go for it. I don't care. You're not, if you're not feeding me, or y'all know the gist. If you're
Hmm.
not doing those 3 things, I don't care. I care about how my kids are raised. I care about the fact that they're respectful human beings are going to treat adults with respect. I care about the fact that when I take them to the store, they're not going to throw a temper tantrum. I care about the fact that when they go to school, they're going to do their work. I care about the fact that I'm going to take accountability for my kids. And when they're screwing up, I'm not blaming the teacher because it's not the teacher's fault that my kid screwed up. Guess what? That comes back on me. That's my accountability. I screwed up as a parent and didn't make my kids do their work. That's where the accountability comes in. And parents want to blame the teacher. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault they're this way. No, it's yours. They're your kids. They're freaking kids. Raise
Mhm.
them. Be their parent, not their friend.
And sadly, the kids that aren't held accountable for their actions by their parents are the same ones that grow up to be adults that either think they can do whatever they want and there will be no consequences, or think they can throw money at any and every problem they have and it'll magically go away because that's what their parents taught them is how it works.
And this is where, and I will allow you two to get your, because I always end a show on words of wisdom. This is how my shows go. I will say this based on that concept, and then I'll let you two get your words of wisdom in, based on accountability, hopefully, because we've kind of like diverted and gone all over the place.
I keep trying to redirect it back to accountability.
I try to also. I keep trying and getting off track. So, with that, this is why I say the elite, those that have money that they can just buy 2 jets and not care, very, 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 very few. I will say of the 1% in this country or the world, about 0.00001% of them actually raise their kids in responsibility. I won't say none of them, because I think there are some out there that do. So where their trust funds come when they're in, their 20s, and so they actually have to go through school, earn a living, and do all this other stuff. And then you have those that came from nothing and give their kids everything and don't hold their kids accountable for anything. So you have the ones that'll buy them out, and you have the ones that'll just be like, "Oh, it's not your fault, honey.
Mhm.
I didn't have anything either. It's okay. Like you come from nothing. It's not your fault." No, it is your fault. Take accountability. So you have both sides of the spectrum, and this is why I
Mhm.
say so many people that want to sit there and blame one side or the other. No, it's everybody. We all
Mhm.
need to own up to our decisions. We all need to own up to how we raise our kids. We all need to own up to how we were raised. We all need to own up to who we are as human beings. Because I could sit there and disagree with one thing from you, but still love you, still respect you, still want the best for you, and be like, hey, look, we're not going to see eye to eye on this one thing, but that doesn't take away from who you are as a person. That doesn't take away from who you are as someone who should be successful in this life. Because guess what? Just like I tell everybody else out there, if you are trying to work for a living and a company doesn't respect who you are and what you stand for and what you believe in, don't work for that damn company. Go work for somebody else. Work for
Mhm.
someone that's going to appreciate you for you. Quit trying to change companies. Go work for a company that appreciates you. And that's where I stand on that topic. Because too much we're trying to change others instead of just sitting there saying, I respect myself. I feel validity in who I am. And I'm just going to be me. Instead, we're out there going, oh no, you need to accept me for who I am. No, you why? Why do you need acceptance from others? Why do you need someone to validate your existence? Why do you
Because
need people?
I have a strong feeling that it's because society thinks we need to hold everyone else accountable instead of starting with holding ourselves accountable first.
Yes, nailed it. Now, on to the words of wisdom. And Looney, since you started the podcast, we're going to let Rain go ahead, give us some final words of wisdom. Please try to make this about accountability because that's what this show was supposed to be all about. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm gonna go back to what I just said. Yes, hold ourselves accountable first, but with that being said, hold those close to you accountable for their own actions as well. And if you have a job that's treating you like shit, hold them accountable for their actions too. Tell them what they did wrong and this is the consequence for their actions, be it you leaving, you filing charge, like whatever process you go with, hold them accountable for their actions.
Definitely. I can agree with that because there are certain processes and procedures in place that we can hold people accountable. And if you're not willing to do that, the one thing I will say, and I will say this to the day I die. If you don't get hired or if you're working for a company and instead of going through the proper procedure to hold the company accountable, your immediate response is, I'm going to put it on social media. Look, that has one or two effects. It may work, it may not, because what you feel is not always what others are feeling. So you may help them out. I'm
Hmm.
saying, So you may want to go through the proper process because it may have an effect that you weren't accounting for. And if you were looking to put someone out of business, you may have made them more business. Just saying. So before you put them on blast, figure out what your actual complaint is. That's all I'm saying on that note. Looney, take it away, brother. What's your words of wisdom before we go?
In the end, the only person that is responsible for you is you. The only person that can define who you are is you. All of that starts with owning up to your BS in the past, not just the bad, but also the good, whether it be yesterday's stuff or today's.
I love it. And that's a big thing is, we all come from somewhere. We all have a story. And if you don't listen to those stories, sometimes you can get lost. And sometimes you will judge people based on how they look or the things they say because you don't know where they come from. You don't know how they were raised. You don't know how they were brought up. There's a lot of people out there today that have a misconstrued view on society and on different people because of how they were raised. And unless you are willing to have a civil discussion, you will never change the mindset. So the moment you start calling names, the moment you start judging based on appearance or based on this, that, and the third, is the moment you have lost all credibility. So my words of wisdom to you, understand, just like you have a story, so does everybody else. Just like you have a path that you need to walk, so does everybody else. Not everybody's going to agree. And the moment you start sitting there telling people they have to agree with you based on feeling or opinion is the moment you're wrong. Because guess what? Until you have factual evidence in front of you, nobody has to agree with you. I don't have to agree with your lifestyle. I don't have to agree with the way you feel. I don't have to agree with your opinion. But you bring me facts. Well, that's irrefutable. I cannot go against facts. However, saying that as humanity and as unity and as someone that truly believes we all need to come together, I don't care where you come from. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you look like. I don't care about any of that. I care about the fact that you want to have the best for humanity in your mind and the best for people. And I want everybody to succeed in life because we do, regardless of what you believe, have the right as a global community to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is not just in the United States, that is globally. You have that right. Take advantage of it. And if somebody is telling you, no, you cannot be happy, they are wrong. Otherwise, look, this has been another amazing episode of Walk With Me, a Cyber Warrior Studios production. As always, I am your host on this journey, the Cyber Warrior. Thank you, Looney, Rain, for joining me this evening. It has been an amazing episode. This has been my longest episode. You can find all the ways to support the show down in the description below on YouTube or in the show notes. And guess what? I will even do something special for you. And if you want to support the Pagan Project, that'll be down there as well. Otherwise, y'all have an amazing Odin's Day. And I will catch you all next week with another episode of Walk With.